GearNetwork.com. This is a Gear Network production.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cyclone Jones, and I am with Pat G. The G stands for Gangster. And remember, the TTRP is sponsored by the Gear Network store through Amazon. If you visit shopgear.com, it's a little bit different. That's shop. GERE.com, and click on any of the banners. It will take you right to your account, and you can do all your Amazon shopping there.
And you shop Amazon and Amazon Prime as you normally would. But the only difference is Amazon kicks back a small percentage of all your purchases to us here at the Gear Network, so we can cover our production costs to continue bringing great programming like TTRP, Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast, Better Live Than Dead, Get Ready America, and Talking Wrestling, among more, here from the Gear Network. So that's shopgear.com, SHOPGERE.com.
From Wherever We Decide Studios, broadcasted live on iTunes, Spreaker, and worldwide, this is the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast with your hosts, the Crimson Cyclone himself, Cyclone Jones, and of course, the producer, Pat G. The G stands for Gangsta. And now kick back and get ready for the eargasms.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to another Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast. You know me, I know you, we know each other. I am Cyclone Jones in the building, along with Pat G. The G stands for Gangster. Pat G, tell them what it is.
It is another edition of the TTRP, and of course, another amazing interview, because we're joined by the co-founder of Capital Wrestling out in New Jersey, Marcus Dowling.
Marcus, thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? How's everything? Like, how's life? How's life in Buffalo? How's everything going up there for you guys?
It's cold, man. It's cold. I'm pretty sure it's cold. Now, you're in Washington, right?
Yeah, I'm in Washington, D.C., and it's currently 44 degrees. It was 29 degrees yesterday. It's cold as hell. So I've got the heat pumping in the apartment, hanging out. It goes.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's definitely cold here, man. You know, the snow falls, and it's always a fun time. Not really.
What was up with the Bills game last week? With the thunder snow that you guys had at like 1 o'clock?
Let me tell you about that
Lake
really
effect
quickly.
thunder snow.
Yeah, let me tell you a story really quickly on that. I was supposed to go to the game. I had free tickets. I had about 7 free tickets.
The best tickets.
Oh, yeah, the best tickets. But instead, I was booked for a show in Toronto. So I went to Toronto, did my wrestling thing, and I came back. As soon as I crossed the border, snow everywhere. I dropped off one of my riding partners, and I literally could not see in front of me. That's how much snow was coming down. This was like 7 o'clock at night. And I'm driving about 20 miles an hour, can't see a thing. As soon as I crossed another city's border, like I was in West Seneca, and then I crossed the Cheektowaga border. As soon as I crossed the Cheektowaga border, it was clear as if nothing ever happened.
This is proof that there's global warming, and this is proof that we don't have much longer left on this planet.
No.
I put it like this. This ties into what we're talking about, because the world could end at World War IV on December 29th at Capital Wrestling in Hoboken, New Jersey.
That's a good plug-in right there. I like that smooth entry right there.
So ask you guys, have you guys watched any Capital Wrestling in the last 9 months?
Honestly, I knew of Capital Wrestling, and I've kind of caught up over the last couple days to get myself familiar with.
Okay, so what aspects were you into initially?
I watched the Capital episode 1 that you guys had on your website.
Yeah.
And just watching the action, and the venue you guys were in was an amazing venue.
Yeah. Cathedral Hall in Jersey City. We started off there March 29th. Actually, March 25th. of this year. And Cathedral Hall is an amazing venue. It's a condemned old Catholic church. So it's one of those things where when we started Capital, myself and Matthew Ryan, there's a separation. Matthew Ryan, person that co-runs Capital Wrestling. Matthew Ryan Shapiro is an evil lawyer who is attempting to ruin a company that I helped to co-found. So to make sure that we can have that separation so that we understand. It's 2017, so we can, we can play loose and fast with these things.
Right.
So Matt and I've known Matt for 8 years. So we were trying to figure out, at a point, we should start a wrestling company. Both of us are avowed fans of classic wrestling and also modern wrestling. We both have years in. I have 15 years in. Matt's at about 5. We did a podcast, curiously enough, together years ago. And we always just stayed in touch. And he knew that I was managing. I was trained by Axel Rotten.
Okay.
I broke in with Steve Carino.
Wow.
So World One and those kind of promotions. I toured most of the Eastern United States with Axel. So that had me end up in Pittsburgh and end up in Maryland Championship Wrestling where I managed Christian York. I did a bunch of different stuff. And I've always had an interest in the creative side of things as well as in the working side of things, like in front of the camera. So Matt and I were going back and forth, and I'm also a historian just by nature. So I have this historical understanding of the industry, and I understand that the industry moves in cycles, and that cycles are important in anything. So Matt and I, we were kind of batting it back and forth over the last 3 or 4 years. Man, wouldn't it be funny if we did a wrestling company? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be pretty funny. And then we're like, well, where should we, if we did a company, where would we put it? And I'm in Washington, D.C., born and raised, and I'm like, well, there's a history of wrestling in Washington, D.C. When Vince Sr. started promoting, he promoted the Capital Wrestling Corporation out of Washington, D.C. And then it's like, and that was the thing. And he's like, that would be funny, to bring it back. And to do a thing that's kind of old school, kind of new school, kind of progressing things. And then I'm like, well, Matt, I've worked for 15 years also in and around the entertainment industry, mainly in music. And I understand demographic shifts in the way that, the universe moves in that sense, where, you have hipster culture and developing independent to underground movements. And I'm like, well, Matt, I'll do you one better. If we were to open a company, we should do it in a place like Jersey City, because Jersey City's right outside of Manhattan and Brooklyn, and it's kind of this hot, up-and-coming, exciting city where you have a mix of families and alt-left people and people who are older. So I'm like, what we want to do if we were to ever do a company, not that we were ever going to do a company, but if we were ever going to do one, I'd probably want to put it in Jersey City or in Hoboken. So fast forward, I'm sitting in my bed. I'm a full-time freelancer, and I'm sitting in my bed. Matt's at work. He works for FightSports.tv, and he's like, hey, I'm watching Ron Wright from Louisville Wrestling in 1974. And I'm like, oh, that's Lawler's first territory he worked as a heel. That wasn't Memphis. And he's like, yeah, I just found this. And Ron Wright is on the show. And I'm like, oh, Ron Wright. Ron Wright? He's like, yeah. And so for people who aren't aware, Ron Wright's one of the most legendary territory heels of all time. He's one of the true, baddest dudes that ever wrestled. He's a guy who always did extra to get heat. He's the kind of guy who would always find a way to antagonize a situation within a storyline that, painted outside of the boundaries of what you would expect.
Okay.
So there's this angle 74. And he sends me a TV, and I'm like, okay, what am I watching for? He's like, watch Ron Wright and this referee set up the house show run that Ron Wright has this weekend with the #1 guy in the territory. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm not thinking anything of this. So I start, and Matt had already seen it, so he was not telling me what it was. So I'm watching, and there's this set down at a general territory TV setup where the announcers talk about, well, this weekend in Louisville, it's going to be, Joe Bob and Bob Jean and the best 2 out of 3 falls. And then we're going to bring out Ron Wright now, because Ron Wright is just coming to the territory, and he's a horrible human being, blah, 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 blah. He sits down, and he's like, I had a problem with the referee at the Louisville Gardens last week, and I want to bring that young man out because I want to talk to him about refereeing my matches this weekend. So they bring out the referee. referee comes out, young man, very much baby face, very much white meat, just looking like a generic guy.
Right.
And he sits down. Ron Wright begins to berate the ref. Note that the person that Ron Wright is wrestling is not anywhere to be found. But he's berating the referee. And he's yelling at the referee. And he's like, "You're terrible. You don't know what you're doing. You absolutely stink at your job. I don't understand why you're even a referee in this territory. I came to this territory to win titles. If you are the style of referee that I'm expecting here, then I'm not going to win, and I'm not going to stay here." And so then the young man bucks up, and he's like, "Why are you saying this about me? Blah, blah, blah." And then he gets in Ron Wright's face, because he's like, I won't stand for that. I'm a referee. I'm the arbiter of justice, or whatever he says. And he stands in his face, and Ron Wright slaps him. Right in the mouth. And he's like, "Shut up." And then he slaps the referee again, like paintbrushes him the other direction. He's like, "You shut up."
Wow.
And the referee backs up and he's getting ready to go up to fight him. And then the baby face that Ron Wright is facing this weekend finally comes out. And it's like, "Hey, man, you're not going to put your hands on the referee.
Classic.
I'm going to beat you this weekend."
that classic heel mentality of, I'm going to do whatever I want to do and you can't do anything about it, until that last moment where the heel's finally going to go too far, and then that's when the babyface shows up and stops it.
Right, and it was amazing. And then Matt goes, "Well, so we should do this Capital Wrestling thing." And I go, well obviously. This is the most amazing thing I've seen all day. This is crazy. I'm like North American professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
This type of interaction.
Yeah. You're right.
Okay, so we're in this place now, and this gets into Capital, and why World War IV is important. We're in this place now where, 20 years ago, you had 3 companies with 100 people, with let's say 250 people, who were the established professional wrestlers at the top of the industry. And you watch them 10 hours a week. And there really wasn't a need necessarily to go to an independent show, but because you had 10 hours of TV with wrestlers who had been wrestling for the better part of 5 to 30 years, right?
True.
Okay. So fast forward to 2017, where we are right now. There's one company that has 8 hours of first-run TV every week. And then there's literally every single independent company worldwide available to watch.
Right.
So it's madness. Absolute insanity.
Right. Mass hysteria.
It's so spectacular. You're a worker. You go on the road every weekend.
Yes.
Every single company you work in, even if they use the same guys, a different guy is the top guy, right?
You're right. Very true.
There's not an established, this guy is the top guy everywhere.
Right.
It's
madness.
It's very similar to the territory days where every promotion has a different guy for so long.
It is, but it isn't. Because at least in the NWA, you knew that Harley Race was the guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, there's a guy, and it's Harley Race.
Right.
So, no matter who else you're watching wrestling, no matter who else is a great wrestler, at the end of the day, Harley Race is the guy.
Right.
So if you book Harley Race, that's the guy, and the guy is showing up. So, Capital Wrestling. Let's get back to the conversation we're having here. Capital Wrestling exists in this world where we pay minimal, if any, attention to any other professional wrestling happening anywhere else on planet Earth.
Okay.
Capital Wrestling is a territory. When you watch our TV, and we have a deal with Twitch now, so you can see us on Twitch. You can see us on YouTube. You can see us on, we have a pivot share. We do all the stuff everybody else is doing. But when you watch our promotion, at the beginning of the show, there's a voiceover that says, "The best wrestling from the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region." Because largely, Sage Phillips, who's fantastic, is trained by Seth Rollins, and we have a relationship with the Black and Brave, so we're not going to dissuade Seth Rollins from sending his students to us. Mm-hmm. So, largely, Capital Wrestling is the best wrestling from the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. That's a 1,000-mile stretch from the bottom of North Carolina to the tip of Maine.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already self-selected 99% of the world away from what we're doing.
Wow.
On purpose. On direct purpose. Because you watch other wrestling, and if you go to an indie show somewhere, it's like, oh, well this week it's going to be, we're going to bring in 4 guys from New Japan, and a guy from Ring of Honor, and 2 guys from Evolve.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, that's cool, and I respect people that do that. But at the same time, you're then having to, like, take people out of that context and then put them into your context, and then hope that within the context of whatever it is you're doing, that this Evolve guy isn't miles better in perception, talent, skill, ability to draw, whatever, than the guys you're using.
Then your main guy, because then it makes your main guy look bad.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you watch Capital Wrestling, we're like, okay, screw all that. That doesn't exist. And we go through painstaking measures to make sure that when you watch the promotion, when you see our branding, like if you see the poster for World War IV, for instance, you're not going to find a poster like that anywhere else in the world. We had an artist, specifically, we like sat down with him and we're like, okay, this is World War IV. So what we want to do is that we want to like give people this like World War I kind of vibe.
Right.
And so we're like, look at this and create a poster off of this. Every time we have a show, we sit down and we're like, okay, so I'm a fan of, say, Southern Territory professional wrestling posters. Like, I love seeing those old posters from, like, say Florida, for instance, right? Like, oh, okay, so, like, Harley races to town his face fighting Dusty, and Pat Song is fighting, Tim Horner or whatever in match 1. Mm-hmm. And you look at the poster for that, and it's really stylized. It looks old, especially if you look at it, like, from a modern eye. It looks really, really old in a cool way. Mm-hmm. So, like, you'll see our stuff, and that's what we're going for. We're going for this kind of, like, thing where when you look at the visual branding, you're like, okay, this is not anything I'm used to seeing.
Right. Well, looking at the poster, it looks amazing. It has that old feel. It has an old feel for me, but also to me, because I'm a gamer as well, it has that kind of apocalyptic feel because it reminds me of Red Faction. Which is
thank you for noticing that. Earl Tompkins, who made that poster, appreciates you.
Yes, because I see it. It's all over that. There's Red Faction all over that. So it's an amazing poster. Fans, you got to go out there and check it out. World War IV. Definitely check the poster out on Capital Wrestling website.
Yeah, so I mean, those things that those are the things that we're looking to do. Like, you want to just be able to give people this sense that, like, this is a wildly different place. So, like, even down to the roster. So, like, there's 1 million people wrestling all around the world. I did this. We have a Medium page as well. And in Shoot Life, I'm one of the top 1% of people read on Medium every year, which is bananas to me, but whatever. Like, it's just like, wow, okay, people read what I have to write. That's cool. But so we have a Medium page, and we put up pieces about the industry that aren't like condescending or mean-spirited towards the industry, but kind of like looking at the industry like, say, like you read like the Harvard Business Review or something. Mm-hmm. Like, we're just kind of like, we're reporting on like kind of what's going on, and then kind of like contextualizing that with the goofy bullshit that we're doing at, can I curse here? I'm sorry if you have to bleep me out.
No. You're good. The TTRP is completely explicit. You're good.
Okay. So the goofy bullshit we do at Capital Wrestling by comparison to the rest of the world. So, we were having this conversation, and we're like, okay, so there were 250 great wrestlers that were on TV 20 years ago. By comparison, now there's like 15,000 people that wrestle relatively every so often, every given weekend. You have a set of 15,000 people who wrestle.
Right.
Everybody from Brock Lesnar to guy having match 1 in Toronto, Ontario.
Right.
15,000 people. So we're like, okay, so we're going to choose out of these 15,000 people, say 30 uniquely selected people, again, from a very thinly selected portion of the country. So this gets us into the space where we're like, all right, so we want to reflect like a unique space. So, and we also want to make sure that we put people out there in a way that they're uniquely presented as organically themselves, and there's not a lot of like over gimmickry there. So, give me an example. Like, we use a guy named Ken Dixon.
Okay.
From Maryland Championship Wrestling. Ken is an avowed asshole. I love him, but he is.
Yeah.
And the thing about Tim that makes it work is that you don't know if he's working you. I run the company, and I don't know if he's working me.
See, and that's awesome to have that skill to be able to work somebody and not even know you're being worked or not.
But then when you put him in the ring with somebody like Sonny Kiss, who, and you know who Sonny is, you work in Toronto, so you've seen Sonny up there. He was just up there yesterday.
Okay.
Sonny's an ex-New York Jets cheerleader, 3-sport athlete, also happens to be gay.
Yes.
Sonny Kiss is one of the most talented people I've met on the independent scene.
He's astoundingly gifted. He's an acrobat, but not in that way where you're like, oh, all he does is flips. The thing about Sonny is that he connects with people in a way where you're like, wow, I have to see him. I have to see what happens next, because when you hit Sonny in a manner that most people don't do, we can get inside baseball here, and I'm going to get inside baseball here on occasion. He's the kind of guy that when you hit him, he falls down. Mm-hmm. As opposed to 99% of people who are baby faces in professional wrestling in the year of our Lord 2017, when you hit them in the face, their first immediate response is to hit you back.
Yeah.
Which, if you're trying to get people to be interested in what happens 5 minutes from now, maybe you should fall down.
Maybe you should fall down. A lot of, and that's funny that you say that, because a lot of people don't understand that simple psychology. People, and I was just talking to a couple of my guys that are young in the business, and telling them, for instance, he was in the beginning of the match and he got kneed 4 times in the chest just to pop up and punch the guy in the face and then act like nothing happened. I'm like, you just got kneed by a man the same size as you. That's going to hurt.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's okay to show that you're hurt. It's okay to show that you're in pain. That's the thing. And so when you put somebody like Kid Dixon, who's an asshole. Mm-hmm. That's his gimmick. Real simple. He's an asshole. You don't know if he's working. It's wonderful. And you put him in the ring with somebody like Sonny Kiss, who, when you hit him, Sonny shows pain. You give them 15 minutes, something good is going to come of that. And it's something unique in the sense that, and it's a visual trick. And it's the thing about Capital, this is, again, I'm not telling secrets outside of school or anything.
Right.
And the thing that exists that makes Capital unique is it's the visual trick of watching Capital. When you watch our promotion, you're going to see people act in ways that are logical. And everybody on the Capital Wrestling roster acts in a manner that is logical according to who they are as a person. Mm-hmm. So, everybody is selected on purpose. A lot of times you watch a wrestling show and it's like, oh yeah, these two guys are hot indie wrestler dudes, awesome people. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to watch Amazing Red and Zack Sabre Jr. because it's like, oh yeah, they're amazing, awesome indie wrestling people. So, right. Yeah, that's cool, and that's a wonderful thing to do, and it's great for business. Give two guys an opportunity to have a match, and people will come and they'll watch the match. But you can go one step further, and you can think, okay, so this person, what do they do when they are hit? What do they do when the crowd boos them? What do they do in this kind of scenario? So, we run right now at the Hopes Building in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is a converted schoolhouse. Mm-hmm. So we run in their auditorium, and it's a school auditorium from 1954. So it's got a stage and a red curtain, and it's a very quaint building. So it adds this thing when something happens, people are so close to the action, and people are so heated up because they're right next to you.
Right.
That if you take a second and you sell something or you give a bigger response, it's going to go like wildfire. It's just going to...
Yeah.
And the response is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's done on purpose. So, that's the thing. When you think about, every time you watch match in the company, that's what happens. So you get to, the main event of World War IV. So for the last 9 months, Matthew Ryan Shapiro has been a pain in my ass. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'll explain this to you. Explain what's going on in Capital Wrestling. So, match 1 of the company, he manages the New York Wrecking Crew, Smooth Blackman and Chris Seaton. They're the former tag team champions from House of Glory Wrestling. They're bad dudes.
Okay.
Take twin bad news Browns and put them in a ring.
Oh, wow.
But that's what they are. So, New York Wrecking Crew, in the first match in the company, Sonny Kiss and Eddie McQueen were in, and they were, wrestling as the good guys against the bad guys, and Matthew Ryan Shapiro hit Sonny Kiss with a book and allowed the New York Wrecking Crew to win. It's the first match in the history of the company, and there's cheating that occurs in the first match in the history of the company. I'm calling the match, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why would Matt do that? So, continue to move on here. We get to a point where the tag team titles are held by Luxury Muscles Incorporated. Yes, there's a tag team called Luxury Muscles Incorporated, and they're two jacked up guys, and that is their name, Luxury Muscles Incorporated. They're managed by Portia Vaughn, who in real life is a fantastic comedian named Stephanie Sodelay, but in Capital Wrestling, she is the feminist Portia Vaughn.
Okay.
So she's a feminist activist who manages jacked up muscleheads.
That's great.
That's awesome.
She's all about wanting to maintain her safe space. Mm-hmm. And so she has two giant jacked up men to maintain her safe space. She wants to eat her kale in peace.
That's awesome. So tell me.
They're the tag team champions. So Luxury Muscles Incorporated are the tag team champions. And in the midst of getting ready for our next show, getting ready for one of our pre-tapes, we have a guy named Paul Jourdain, 6'8", 300 pounds, ex-WWE signee from Florida Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestles out of Maryland. He's making his debut. He runs into the locker room and goes up to sizzling Stan Styles, who's shaking his ever-present shake weight. And Stan has no idea who Paul Jourdain is. He hasn't ever seen Paul Jourdain before. He just leaves Paul Jourdain in the room with the tag team titles. The tag team titles are mysteriously stolen and end up with Matthew Ryan Shapiro. So now Matthew Ryan Shapiro is randomly in possession of the tag team titles, which he has stolen. Then we get our Capital Wrestling Championship. We get it made. We get it handmade by a guy in Jersey City, New Jersey. Took great pride in this. I'm very, very excited. We half pay the belt, like most wrestling promotions do. We're like, we'll half pay it now. We'll pay for the balance later. In the midst of waiting to pay for the balance, I go to pick up the belt is gone. They're like, oh, somebody came to pick up the belt. I'm like, oh, wonderful. That's nice. They don't tell me who, but they're like, someone picked up the belt. We get to the day of the show, and Mike Keener, our senior referee, is in possession of the title. And I'm like, Mike, you have the belt. He's like, yes, I picked up the belt. I'm like, oh, wonderful. That's good. So they were going to present the championship to a person who will be named later. I don't want to divulge who the champion was, because we're still in the midst of trying to figure out what happened to the belt, which is ultimately that Matt paid for the balance of the belt before I could pick up the belt from the man who made the belt. So Matthew Ryan Shapiro is in legal possession of the Capital Wrestling Championship.
That cannot be good for you.
Which he then presented to Ken Dixon. And then told Ken that he was the undisputed champion of Capital Wrestling. That is not true. He is the disputed champion of Capital Wrestling.
Disputed? Has there ever been a disputed champion anywhere?
I'm sure there has been, but not like this. The belt from the maker of the belt. What kind of an asshole does that? Who walks in and is like, hey, I know this guy half paid the belt, so I'm going to pay like $1 more than what the belt is worth, so that even if he like pays up the balance, like, I still paid $1 more, so I own the belt. I legally am in possession of this title. Like, what asshole does that? Where's the asshole who does that? So, I'm like out here. I bring the whole roster out. I'm like, oh, this is going to be an amazing moment. Like, boom, slick. It's going to be incredible. Got the whole crowd there. People are excited. We have women and children. We have, like, the LGBT community of Hoboken, New Jersey has shown up en masse because we're excited. We have Sonny Kiss versus Logan Easton in a row in the main event. It's going to be great. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to present the championship to someone. Out walks Matt. And he's like, I own the title. And he gave me the receipt. What kind of asshole?
He gave you the receipt for the Capital Wrestling Heavyweight Championship.
Yes, he presented me with the receipt. Put it in my hand.
Oh, that's amazing.
This has never happened in any wrestling profession ever.
Yeah.
Someone hands another person a receipt saying, here's a receipt for the title I own.
Yeah. I bought that shit.
Yo.
He went to like the Amazon.com of wrestling championships.
Exactly. But to be even worse, he like went to the guy who made the belt, and the guy who made the belt gave him a receipt. Like, well, you're going to pay for the balance of the belt? Great. He doesn't know. He has no idea. He doesn't get it. Like, okay, so he presents him with the receipt. He presents him, with the belt, writes a receipt. I'm like, okay. And then we get into the ring, and Matt's like, hey, I bought the belt. And I'm like, you can watch the thing on TV. You can watch it on Capital Wrestling TV, on Twitch, and on YouTube. I'm like, hey. And I'm like, you're a liar. I'm like, you're not even, he claims to be purports to be a lawyer. I'm like, I told the people, I'm like, he claims to be a lawyer, he's clearly lying. I'm turning to the whole entire, remind you, the whole, families and couples and children and wrestling fans of Hoboken, New Jersey have showed up to the show, sold out show, very excited. Some of the people, I'm like, this guy's obviously a liar. Like, we're going to present this belt, like I said we were going to do in the promotion of this show. Mm-hmm. But no. So Matt's like, I have the receipt, and the receipt is real. Turn to Mike Keener, I'm like, this receipt is not real. He's like, no, it's real. And I'm like, oh, great. So I'm like, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, I have to give the belt to Matt. And I'm like, the hell? And then Matt gets on the mic and he makes a bunch of jokes, says a bunch of really, really untoward things that you don't say in front of kids.
Right.
He literally stated to me that he presumed that I would have to perform oral sex with a guy who made the belt in order for me to purchase the belt.
Wow.
A bastard. He calls his stable the bastard, and you understand why now. Because these are the kind of people who do these things.
That's awesome.
So we have this whole belt, and he tells me that Kindick's champion. Ken comes in, and you know what's even worse? You know how you bring the belt to the show and it's in a satin bag?
Yes.
Yep. Matt doesn't want to take the belt out of the satin bag.
He just hands Ken Dixon the belt in the satin bag and you go, here, you're the champion.
Yes. And he refuses to take the belt out of the bag. Because he feels like people do not deserve to see the champion.
So this all, of course, is leading to December 29th at World War IV.
Yes. Thank God. So I'm sitting in the back, and I'm talking to Mike Keener. I'm like, Mike, what do we do? What do we do? How do we solve this? He's like, well, we can't solve it. We can't, sue him for the belt. I'm like, well, yeah, he's a lawyer, so obviously we can't sue him for the belt. But I'm like, well, what do we do? He's like, well, let's do a 6-on-6 tag match. And I'm like, well, what would that require? He's like, well, 6-on-6, falls count anywhere in the building. I'm like, okay, cool. And then it's like, all right, well, he'll choose 6 people, you'll choose 6 people. And the winner will be able to gain a measure of control, and there's a level of embarrassment that's involved, and hopefully that'll be able to push you along in your attempt to get Matt to A, reveal the belt, and then B, beat Ken Dixon. And I was like, okay, great. Sounds like a plan. And then, I'm like, Mike, because he stole the belt, is it okay if I put Matt on his own team? And then Mike just laughed out loud and just fell on the floor laughing. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I came out later, and you'll see it on Capital Wrestling TV, and I told Matt that we were going to do a 6-on-6 tag match. And he's like, oh, ha, funny. We're going to win. And I'm like, well, you think you're going to win, but you're on your own team. You're not a wrestler, obviously, but you have to wrestle. So, joke's on you, bastard. Yeah. And he's chosen in New York Wrecking Crew. He's chosen a 6'8", 300-pound Paul Jourdain, the man who stole the Capital Wrestling Tag Team Championships, the man who tried to beat Sonny Kiss and force Sonny Kiss to leave Capital Wrestling for good. Again, mind you, Sonny Kiss is from Jersey City, New Jersey, so Hoboken is literally one stop away on the path, so he's literally performing in front of his family and friends. So Paul Jourdain was trying to keep this man from performing in front of his family and friends. And he has 2 other wrestlers that will be named for his team. I have chosen a team of Sex Craze, which is Smiley and Matt Sex Sells from Ring of Honor.
Okay.
the Perfect Strangers, Ari the Greek and Marcus Marquis, who are two wrestlers who work in Warriors Wrestling sometimes as well.
I've heard of Perfect Strangers, and they're a very good tag team.
They're a very good tag team, right? The thing with Perfect Strangers is that they have had numerous opportunities to attempt to gain a victory in Capitol Wrestling as just themselves, as just the tag team themselves, and they haven't quite made it over the hump. But they have promised me that they have figured out a way to defeat the New York Wrecking Crew. So who am I to keep them from this goal?
Of course.
And I'll announce this on this show. Sonny Kiss is on my squad.
There it is.
Boom.
There it is.
Yeah. So I don't know what Matt's going to do. I mean, he's got spots like I've got 5 out of 6 named.
True.
I'm trying to get a 6th, but everybody else is booked on matches on the show. I'm trying to name other people from other places. This may be, again, going back to my earlier point, this may be one of the few times where you'll see some big, giant, independent name or some crazy, untoward person that you've never seen in Capitol Wrestling before, because I can't think of anybody else who wants to take on the Bastards.
You know what? That sounds interesting because, you know, around this time, there are a lot of wind gusts and cyclones can be thrown in anywhere.
Really? I like the way that sounds. I like the way that sounds. I like the way that sounds. We have to talk.
I feel like there could be a cyclone warning for Hoboken, New Jersey.
That's more than entirely possible. That's obviously going to happen. I'm not too worried about that. But the thing is that I want to make this like, okay, so when it comes to Matthew Ryan Shapiro,
yes,
for 9 months, Capitol Wrestling has existed. We've grown tremendously. We've been we've gained the support of people like Eric Bischoff, gained the support of people like Steve Kern. We've gained the support of Dan Bynum, who is the creative director of World Class Championship Wrestling. We've gained the support of people like Bull James. We've gained the support of Steve Carino. We've gained the support of all these people from all over the professional wrestling industry. And in the midst of all of that, if you watch Capitol Wrestling as a product, you know, Matthew Ryan Shapiro's tried to become the most important thing in the whole entire company. Mm-hmm. His face is on the poster.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
His face right there, you know. So outside of all these people, all these tremendous talents, these globally recognized, you know, scions of the industry, Matthew Ryan Shapiro, who is 28 years old, believes himself to be better than all of these other people. And this is a padded, bold-faced lie. A lie.
I don't know. I mean, right now, he has the tag titles, right?
And he has a legal possession.
He illegally possesses the tag team championships and owns the heavyweight championship.
Yes, yes.
I mean,
that's what lawyers do.
Possession is 9/10 of the law.
He says.
Yeah. So, I mean,
so there may be some validity in what he's saying.
Right.
Oh, and I understand that. So, but at the same time, the entire rest of the known wrestling universe likes everything else about Capitol Wrestling but Matthew Ryan Shapiro. And his team of bastards. Mm-hmm. December 29th, if there's any one thing that I'm trying to do by getting a team of people from Capitol Wrestling that represent all of the wonderful things that we've done in the last 12 months, you know, Sonny Kiss met Pat Patterson at the big event in New York. It was a moment that changed his life.
That's so funny. Hold on. That's so funny that you say that. Because actually, as I'm scrolling through Capitol Wrestling, listening to you, I actually see the picture of Sonny Kiss and Pat Patterson right now. Like, literally, just now.
Yeah. So those are things that we do in Capitol Wrestling. Like, we don't play around. We don't, like, try to, like, you know, like, do a thing and say, oh, yeah, we're next level, high quality, high impact, next, you know, innovative pro wrestling. We just try to do the right thing at the right time. So it's like we come into the big event in New York. We see, okay, we look at it like, okay, it's a promotional opportunity. And we're like, great, this would be a great promotional opportunity. There are all these like pop stars there, and people that we know and respect. Like B.G. James is there, and we know and respect him within our company. Work behind the scenes, have gained his respect, and if he's going to be there, so we should be there because we want to see what we're doing in Capital Wrestling. The guy who is the head fighter of WWE SmackDown. This is the kind of person you want to know that you exist and that you're working hard and that you're doing the right thing.
Exactly.
And we try very hard with our visual presentation. We try very hard with everything that we do to show that we have a slight modicum of understanding of what professional wrestling is supposed to be. And then we see that Pat Patterson's going to be at Big Event New York. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, oh, okay. And then we're like, Sonny, so you're going to Big Event New York. And he's like, but why? I'm like, it's a true story. So he's like, it's Saturday. I have to go to work. I have to do stuff. I have things to do. And I'm like, well, Pat Patterson's going to be there. And he's like, are you telling me that you want me to meet Pat Patterson? And we're like, yeah.
You're damn right.
And there you go. Like, that's what happened. So if there's any one reason why people need to stream World War IV live on Twitch on the 29th.
I'd like to point out, Capital Wrestling is one of two companies that has the deal with Twitch right now. The other being Tommy Dreamer's promotion.
Yeah, it's us at House of Hardcore. So if you have any desire to believe that what I'm saying is the truth, Twitch could have anybody in the world.
Right.
Literally have anybody in the world. As an official partner, as a streaming partner, as a paid streaming partner to show that Twitch is actively interested in professional wrestling as an adjoining broadcast brand alongside gaming. It's us in House of Hardcore. So if you want to watch the show, you're seeing a company where we try really, really hard to just do the right thing. And we've studied the history of professional wrestling. There's parts of Capital Wrestling that will make you think of 1974. If you're into 1974 territorial pro wrestling from the South, Timmy Danger and the Danger family, and the Danger Sanctuary rather, will make you think of Kevin Sullivan and King Curtis Ayake and Mark Lewin and the whole Prince of Darkness thing. What he's done with Ryan Zane, by taking Ryan Zane from being a guy who's at the CZW dojo to being this kind of hairy hippie freak who's into peace and love, will blow your mind. If you like tag team wrestling, if you were a fan of the WWF in the 1980s and you just loved the fact that there were 74 million tag teams on the roster at any given time, and if half the TV was people wrestling in tag matches, then you could watch our tag team division where we have 8 different tag teams that are in there at the same time. If you really like old school wrestling, and I know, do you guys like old school wrestling?
Of course. You have to like where it started in order to like where it is now.
Okay, so we have a group called the National Wrestling Alliance. Which is,
NWA. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the NRA. Not even the NWA.
Oh, NRA.
Wrestling. So you're taking so we have the Mofo Mark Rivera, who is the last bastion of Southern wrestling. He is from Memphis, Tennessee. You have Preston Quinn, who Preston Quinn's wrestled for Ring of Honor. He's wrestled for 20 years. He's a veteran. He's very much a veteran. He's from Gloucester, Virginia. He decided after losing to DJ Hyde that he was embarrassed by the state of professional wrestling. And he was embarrassed that he lost to DJ, who's, the boss of CZW. And he is now wearing a mask as the Master of Excellence, as an homage to the Spoiler and to the Masked Superstar. You have the Classics who are in the NRA, who are very much a throwback to the Brainbusters.
Oh, yes, they are. That's Eric Martin. Eric Martin and his tag team partner, which we've met Eric Martin down in North Carolina.
That is right, yeah.
Right. Yeah, they're very much a throwback to the Brainbusters. They're very much to Tully and Arn, to that style of tag team wrestling. You have Bo Crockett, Bo Crockett is like Eddie Gilbert in a lot of ways. He's just annoying as hell, and you want to punch him in the face. You just kind of do. Like, there's no other way to, like, when you mentioned Bo, as a person, like, Bo believes that you shouldn't call it Hoboken, but you should call it Bo-Show-Boken. And when you get Bravura and Bo together, they say that the name of Hoboken shouldn't even be Hoboken or Bo-Show-Boken, but it's Mofo and Bo-Show-Boken.
Nice.
But that's the kind of guys they are. So, I mean, we have a little bit of something for everybody. And then you get people like Smiley, who's a fantastic luchador and does things in the ring that only he can do. And you have like a 5-way match, which involves our Sapphire TV champion. Yes, that's Sapphire, the men's club in the heart of New York City, is the sponsor of our television championship.
Okay.
Which means that the television champion is, in this case, for World War IV, will be accompanied to the ring by representatives from Sapphire, New York City.
Giggity.
You're not going to see that anywhere. You're going to get him, you get Mike Law in the ring with Leon St. Giovanni, one half of Coast to Coast in Ring of Honor. You're going to get him in the ring with the Bad Apple Matt McIntosh. He's also going to be in the ring with Anthony Gangone and Ryan Zane, the aforementioned Ryan Zane, the hairy hippie himself. And that's going to be a 5-way match where you're going to see every single move. If you like moves, and a lot of the kids, nobody on this call probably likes moves as much as the kids like me.
Of course.
And you're going to get to see every move in that match. All of them. If you want to see a suplex or a 450 or a no hands plancha dive,
you will see it.
Or if you want to see somebody do some kind of crazy handspring elbow, you're going to see them all in that match, and somebody's going to win, and they're going to get to have the opportunity to face the disputed Capital Wrestling Champion Kid Dixon at our anniversary show in March. So there's something for everybody on this show. And as the guy who, booker, writer, creator, whatever I do, sits in his underfoot on his couch and watches New Japan and gets dumb ideas. That's what I am right now, I think. You're going to get a little bit of everything on this show, and that's what we try to do. Is we try to give people a little bit of everything, because you have to. Because other folks will tell you that you're going to get a little bit of everything, but you're going to get like the old school stylized guy who also does the 450.
Awesome.
Very cool.
And that's not what we do. Like, we're saying we're going to give you something different. We're going to give you an actual masked wrestler. It's like no bullshit. Like, Preston Quinn is the master of excellence. You'll see a promo of him from the page. He's facing Wildman Congo at our show on the 29th. So you're not just even going to get a masked wrestler. It's like, because you get the masked guy, and the masked guy does a flip or something.
Yeah.
No, we're going to give you an actual masked wrestler. And the actual masked wrestler is going to fight an actual 400-pound monster.
Yep.
And 400-pound monster isn't going to be Vader to do a assault or do some other crazy thing where you're like, oh my god, no, Wildman Congo is a 400-pound monster who hits people very hard and they fall very fast.
Yes, that does happen. I've seen Wildman Congo matches. He puts people out quick.
Right, so you're going to get an actual masked wrestler. I mean, the thing with Preston Quinn, the Master of Excellence, is that Bill Eadie, who was the Masked Superstar, gave Preston Quinn the Masked Superstar mask to be Masked Superstar 2. So that's a real thing that happened in real life about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So for PQ to say he wants to do the Master of Excellence and do Masked Superstar, it's like, he's going to do that. As well as the other thing with PQ is that he's super tight with Mark Canterbury, who, speaking of masked wrestlers, was one half of the Texas Hangmen in WCW. So there's things like we're going to actually give you a masked wrestler.
Wow.
Like, I'm a fan of wrestling. I've been watching wrestling. I'll be 30. I'll be 40 next year. So I'm 39 right now. So I've been watching wrestling for 35 years.
Wow. Well,
yeah. So that's the thing. When I've been watching wrestling for 35 years, I'm like, okay, and I like people that watch wrestling a lot. Like, I actually like wrestling fans. So and I believe that wrestling fans should get like the cool thing. And I'm like, and so Ring of Honor is going to give you the Young Bucks, and New Japan is going to give you Okada and Naito. They're even going to give you Jericho, and Omega. Right? But where else in North America are you going to find an actual masked wrestler against a 400-pound monster in 2000?
Very true. Well, at this time, as we're getting close to wrapping up here with Marcus, now, this is your time to promote your product, promote your company, give out the information for anybody that's out there on the independent scene, that's in the new generation, a chance to come to Capitol and make a name for themselves.
Okay, fantastic. So, Capitol Wrestling in Hoboken, New Jersey on December the 29th, we have World War IV, featuring 9 matches, featuring everything from students from Seth Rollins' Black and Brave Academy to a 12-man War Games style Falls Count Anywhere Ultimate Brawl. We also have actual heavyweight wrestling. We have actually a 5-way match as well. So in the case that you think that we are too old school, we're absolutely not. We're going to give you the finest of the up-and-coming talent of the new school as well. If you're a talent that's interested in coming to Capitol Wrestling, check us out, Facebook.com/Capitol Wrestling, the easiest way to do it. Also, check us out on Twitch, Twitch.com/Capitol Wrestling. The newest, hottest, and greatest and latest way to watch professional wrestling is on Twitch, because the gaming community is just as important as the wrestling community is right now in the year of our Lord 2017. So check us out there. Also, CapitolWrestling.com if you're a traditional internet user. And if you really just want to get a sense of where we're going and where we've been and where we're coming to, check us out on YouTube, our YouTube page, Capitol Wrestling. Everything there from promos to matches. We also, if you're a talent trying to get into the company, it's very, very important to mention that we will have a seminar before the show on the 29th. We have Brutal Bob Evans, a part of the National Wrestling Alliance, as I mentioned, along with Lauren Pestis, who is a broadcaster from the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, who's also a radio broadcaster in the state of Rhode Island, and also myself, with 20 years almost of professional wrestling experience, talking about everything from wrestling itself to character development to cutting promos to talent presentation.
Wow. That honestly, Marcus.
It's a comprehensive event.
Dude, that has been the best plug I've ever heard on this show since the inception of this show started.
Yeah.
Brother, you're welcome. We have to do it.
That was the best plug ever. It was. Like, generally when we're wrapping up interviews, we give people the thing and they go through like the normal YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, stuff like that. But like,
that was a promo.
Cover everything.
That was a promo.
Yes.
And that was amazing.
Check me out at Marcus with the CKDOWLING on all social media. Follow me. Hit me up, message me, whatever. We'll talk about wrestling. We'll talk about music. We'll talk about anything. Politics, I don't care.
Sounds like a plan. Marcus, again, thank you for joining us, man. This has been, like, you are just a plethora of knowledge. Would you say a plethora?
Man.
A plethora.
I'm just hanging out and having fun.
Man, I hear you. Well, again, thank you for joining us on the Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Capitol Wrestling, December 29th, biggest show, the last show of the year for I think anybody. So you definitely want to check it out. We may have to take a ride up there, Pat G.
We might.
We might have to take a ride. Let's check some finances and talk to the women because. Definitely got to get our permission.
World War IV, December 29th, Hoboken, New Jersey, Capitol Wrestling. And, hey, like Marcus said, if you're a talent looking to get into Capitol, he gave you all the information right there. You know what to do.
And of course, tickets are available now, brownpapertickets.com. Check us out. We also have a shop available on the Facebook page as well, so pick up your tickets now. 2-for-1 deals available on Groupon and also on Yelp.
Cool beans. Ladies and gentlemen, you know how we do it. Cyclone Punch!
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.